Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the BG Show. I'm here to do a review of Gladiator 2, the highly anticipated sequel of course, the first Gladiator movie, which came out almost 25 years ago with Russell Crowe. Highly anticipated movie, one of my most highly anticipated movies of the year. So let me just get right into it. Of course, I will start with non-spoiler thoughts, as always. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't worry. I'm going to give you a warning before I spoil anything. And right off the bat, I want to say this is a good movie. Is it as good as the first one? Definitely not. Is it a quality movie? Yes. However, I still have not holes in the movie, but certainly notes, and I actually wrote them down because I don't want to forget anything. And I think the best place to start is, in terms of dissecting this movie, is the four main actors. This movie is driven off four main actors. They're all kind of big in Hollywood right now to varying degrees. And obviously, we start with Denzel Washington, who doesn't need any introduction. He's probably one of the best maybe the best living actor we have today, one of the best actors that we've ever had in Hollywood. Certainly one of the last quote-unquote movie stars, and that's another discussion for this movie. But on top of being a good actor, he's also a good movie star. And he didn't need to do this movie. Obviously, he doesn't have to do any other movies, but was a great addition. Then we have Pedro Pascal, who, of course, we know from The Mandalorian. We know from The Last of Us. He's going to be in Fantastic Four. He was in Wonder Woman 2. He's become under the microscope of maybe being a little bit too saturated in the industry. And that's an issue we'll get into. But he plays Acacius, the leader, the general of the Roman army. Next, we have Paul Mescal, who is an Irish actor who, this reminds me a lot of Timothée Chalamet doing Dune. He was probably more famous because he's from United States, but a decorated actor, respected actor who's kind of doing his first big budget, action movie. Most of his roles are a little bit more, I don't want to say on the softer side, but they're a little bit more finesse roles. This is his first, very masculine role. And then we have Joseph Quinn, who, of course, we know from Stranger Things, and who parlayed Stranger Things into The Quiet Place, which I thought he was good. He's in this movie, which I think he's good. And then he's also going to be in Fantastic Four with Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal being Reed Richards, and Joseph Quinn being the Human Torch. And I think they all give good performances, although I got to be honest, my first non-spoiler thought and my first issue with the movie, I think it's Pedro Pascal got a little bit exposed here. I don't think he didn't do a bad job, but the entire movie I'm thinking that there's better roles for this. I'm wondering if all the saturation, like I spoke about, potentially was one of the issues here. I just think leader of the general of the Roman army. I made a joke. He's got a T-shirt under his armor. It reminds me of like in college basketball when the overweight guys wearing T-shirts. I just think you need a bigger, stronger guy. Maybe that's just me. I didn't buy him a ton in the fighting sequences. Again, he wasn't bad, but I didn't buy him, especially, and it's not. I don't even know what it is because when you look at a character like Jaime Lannister, him and Pedro Pascal, they have similar physiques, to a degree, but I bought him way more. Even a lot of the Game of Thrones guys I bought a lot more. So I don't know if this was the best role for him. I mean, he certainly didn't do a bad job, but he wasn't great. Denzel was really good. I thought it was really funny, that he just didn't do an accent at all. He just has his Bronx accent in the Roman Empire. I think they could have utilized him better, though. He was in the movie way more than I thought he'd be, and he's a way more important character than I thought he'd be. I thought he'd be a little bit more of a side character, but he's kind of in the main plot, and I'll talk about it in spoilers, but I thought he just could have done, they could have used, if they're going to use him to that degree, they could have rewrote his story. Paul Mescal, I thought, did a good job, and the issue I have with him is just when you look at Russell Crowe. I always say Gerard Butler, Russell Crowe, in that movie when he walks into the room and he's leading the gladiators, he just kind of gives off the vibe of, this guy's a badass. I want to lead this guy. I want to go to war with this guy. I don't know who this guy is, but he's my guy. Whatever he says, that's what I'm doing. Paul Mescal definitely does well in the fighting scenes. I buy him as a tough guy. I buy him that he can fight. I buy all that. He has also a similar physique to Russell Crowe in that movie, where he's certainly a big dude. He's in really good shape, but he's not Marvel ripped, or he's not how they were in 300, where it looks like he's been taking steroids. So I think it's a good realistic look for a movie like this. But the issue is he just doesn't have the charisma that Russell Crowe has in any of the scenes. And it's not a knock on him. I mean, really, no one does. That's why he won the Academy Award. I mean, to win the Academy Award for a role like this is extremely difficult, and he did. And I think the charisma, and it's a similar issue that Pedro Pascal has, it's just not enough charisma for the screen. The acting is good, but acting is different than charisma. And I think you see it a lot with Paul Mescal, where he delivers his lines really well, which he does in his other movies. But the difference in this movie, compared to the movies that he's done in the past, the smaller indie movies, is that you have to command the screen, you have to show charisma, and I don't think he did. I don't think he did the best job at that. He did a pretty good job, but not an awesome job. The next note, non-spoiler thought, is I think Game of Thrones severely hurt this movie. Everything that's been done in this movie, and I'm not even the biggest Game of Thrones fan. I'm a fan, but I'm not obsessed with it. I think Game of Thrones has done better. From anything with a sword, to the fighting, to the dialogue, to just, I know it's the Roman Empire, and Westeros is a totally different world. And this is supposed to be a little bit more realistic in terms of history, but I just think even the set pieces, none of it looked as good or was executed as well. And when this movie came out in 2000, we didn't have 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. This was a much bigger deal. We've gotten a lot of these different types of movies, specifically Game of Thrones, and I think something like that really hurts it. Let me get more into my notes here. So I guess, closing off non-spoiler thoughts, I thought it was a good movie. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. But the issue is there's just something about this movie as I was watching it where it's just missing something. It has all of these good actors. The plot is pretty good. Well, the plot actually, and that's another thing I'll get to, the plot is good. But the thing with a movie like this is it kind of tells on itself, because a movie like this is set up to win Oscars. And I'm not just saying that because Gladiator 2 is, but when you put together this actors, it's like an epic thing. By definition, if no one's winning an Oscar, if nothing's nominated for an Oscar, something went wrong, because this is the type of epic movie. Because it doesn't, either you go totally off into Marvel territory and you do just crazy action. It doesn't do that. It tried to stay a true epic movie. And if you're going to do that, you have to execute, because it's almost a little bit awkward when movies like this don't win Oscars. Because that's really the intent. I mean, it's entertainment, yeah, but the whole point of doing the whole Roman thing, I feel like that's to win prestige awards. And so we'll see if Paul Mescal becomes a movie star after this. I thought this would really blow him up. I think he'll certainly be more famous, but I don't think he'll be on that A tier yet, which is probably what they were hoping. I think this movie is a win for Joseph Quinn. I think it's neutral for Pedro Pascal. I mean, certainly the paycheck's a win, but I think that's about it. I don't know if the acting is a win. And yeah, Denzel's Denzel. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about anything, but certainly another good performance. I don't think he'll be nominated. Maybe out of respect, they'll give him a supporting actor role, but I don't expect it. So yeah, and I guess the closing point, the non-spoiler point, just being the plot. There was 4 or 5 different plots. I think they needed to hone it in a little bit more on just one singular plot. There's probably 3 or 4 different things going on all at a time. They're kind of jumping around, but there's not enough time to do that. So overall, a solid movie. Those are my non-spoiler thoughts. This is your official spoiler warning. Do not move forward if you haven't seen the movie. I will be spoiling the movie going forward. All right, guys, spoiler review, Gladiator 2. Again, this is your official spoiler warning. So, as expected, Paul Mescal's character is the son of Maximus, who fled, who ran away, who now goes by a different name. And he's essentially living in a different kingdom or a different city. And beginning of the movie, he's married. His wife is also a warrior. And Pedro Pascal, leading the Roman army, has this opening battle scene. And his wife dies. He gets taken hostage, and that's how he gets taken back to Rome. There, he does a sequence of trials. Denzel Washington is the master of gladiators, I think they say. So he's somewhat high up, but not totally high up. Joseph Quinn plays one twin. There's 2 twins that are in charge of Rome who are very crazy. Definitely Joffrey-esque. I think I got a lot of inspiration from that. But that's kind of the basis, or the basis of the outline of the movie, and the kind of what leads him to being a gladiator. There's some really, really good scenes in the Colosseum. The CGI is wonky up and down. He ends up killing the current champion. The water battle, I think, is really cool. I thought, they had sharks in the water, so just getting elements of Jaws mixed in with Gladiator just for a second, I thought was cool. And And Pedro Pascal is very, very hesitant. He doesn't like conquering all these cities, doesn't like killing all these cities. And so he plans a coup that does not work, which ends up getting him thrown in prison and eventually thrown into the gladiator pit against Paul Mescal. Paul Mescal wants to kill him because he's the Roman emperor or the Roman general who killed his wife, or was responsible for killing his wife. He didn't physically do it himself, but he gave the order. And so eventually, Pedro Pascal's trying to make him stand down and whatnot. And he's trying to make him stand down. And eventually he gets beat, and the emperor gives the order to shoot him. Does kind of like the same thing that Joaquin Phoenix does, gives the thumbs down. And that's how Pedro Pascal goes out in this movie. Denzel, the reason I said in my non-spoiler review they didn't use him as well is he basically ends the movie only for like 2 minutes on top. He kills one of the twins. The other one ends up dying too. Actually, he kills both twins. He helps one twin, manipulates one twin into slashing the other twin's throat. And then when no one is looking during the gladiator scene, he sticks like a needle in the ear, it was kind of nasty, of the other twin, and basically takes over Rome. And that's really his plan. That's been his plan. And at the end of the movie, him and Paul Mescal have this face-off. I did think Denzel did a good job making it somewhat believable that he can fight this guy, but obviously gets overpowered and gets killed, gets hit in the head with a rock and then stabbed. So he ends the movie dead. So only Paul Mescal makes it out of the main four characters alive. And the reason I thought about Denzel was really good, I thought he was just kind of like added to the movie to kind of just, hey, why not have Denzel in our movie? But I didn't expect him to be like disinvolved, to end up or try to end up on top. They tried to do like this House of Cards storyline with him where like he's slowly accruing power. But I just don't think there was enough time, not just in this movie, but in any movie to do that. That needs to be like a series of TV storyline. There's not enough writing to really make it effective. And I think they bounced around too much in the storylines that I was mentioning in the other review. They have the Paul Mescal storyline, how he gets there. Then they have the second storyline of him and his mom and Maximus being his dad. Then you have Pedro Pascal's storyline of like him kind of being hesitant and him trying to overthrow a coup. And then you have the Denzel Washington storyline and everything he's up to. And then you have the twins and kind of like all their craziness. And that leaves nothing else in the movie, but it's just they needed to make it way more cohesive. And overall, I just think from the sword fighting to even the big Coliseum scenes, other than the water battle, I feel like we saw everything that we've saw in this movie, we've seen in Game of Thrones. And I just think that there were some charisma issues from the actors. They all did a good job, but there just was something missing from this movie. When you're watching it, you're like, I should love this movie, but it's just not. It's not. It almost reminds me. I mean, it's a totally random comparison, but every time I watch Captain America 1, I'm always like, I want to like this movie way more than I do, but I just can't. It's just not. It's just missing something, and I think this movie is just missing. I don't know if it's the set pieces because the action is good, but it's all stuff we've seen before. I think it needed to push the limits of what we've seen and haven't seen before yet, and I just don't think it did that. But those are like the main spoilers. I think they worked it in pretty well to Gladiator 1 as best they could, making him his son. But even if they didn't have that, I still think it still would have been fine. I don't think they honestly had to tie it into Russell Crowe's character, but they decided to. And it was just a solid movie. But I think Game of Thrones, even House of the Dragon, just seeing those shows from your house on a week-to-week basis, I think really lowers like the there's no shock factor of these kind of movies anymore, which I think really hurts it. But I just think everything could have been a little bit better. I think the set pieces could have been a little bit better. I think CGI could have been a little bit better. I think the charisma of the actors could have been better. I think the casting could have been better. I think the writing could have been better. I think the action could have been better. I've probably said these things multiple times now, but like I said, everything just needed to be a little bit better. I was expecting like an 8.5 out of 10, 8 out of 10. This movie's more like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. So that's my spoiler review. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'd recommend seeing this in theaters. It's still an enjoyable time at the movies. It just wasn't the Oscar-level movie that I was hoping, or really like the as epic as I was hoping, but still a very solid movie. Thanks, guys, for watching. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.